Welcome to the Humans versus Retirement podcast with me, Dan Haylett. This show will help you navigate the intricate financial and non-financial landscape of retirement planning, investment and income strategies, and the human experience beyond the traditional work-life paradigm. Join me as I delve into the challenges, triumphs, and unexpected journeys individuals face as they transition into this new phase of life. From experts across many different areas to personal stories, we uncover the secrets, insights, and practical tips to empower you on your retirement journey. Whether you're just starting to consider retirement or already enjoying this chapter, this podcast is your guide to making the most out of this remarkable phase of life. Now, on to the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Humans versus Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Dan Haylett. Today's episode is a conversation with a true pioneer and rebel in the world of modern day financial planning, Paul Armson. Paul is the founder of Inspiring Advisors, a lifestyle financial planning training program, and Life-Centered Planners, a fast-growing global community of advisors from around the world who believe that it's time to put the client and not their money at the center of their plans. Paul is also the author of the brilliant book, Enough: How Much Money Do You Need for the Rest of Your Life? A book that we give out for free and has had such an impact on many of our clients. Paul began life as a financial planner back in 1982, and in 1990 he was one of the very first to see the light and start the movement of what is now known as lifestyle financial planning, focusing on the human and not their money. As well as helping and inspiring many financial advisors across the globe, Paul's overarching mission is to educate and change the lives of people by showing them the real benefits of how lifestyle financial planning can help them live their best life. In this episode, Paul and I talk about his wake-up call when his mother passed away suddenly, leading him to realise that life is not a rehearsal. He shifted his focus to lifestyle financial planning, putting life at the centre of his clients' financial plans. Paul emphasises the importance of understanding how much is enough and helping clients live a great life now. He also discusses the three types of people when it comes to retirement planning: the not enoughs, the got too muches, and the just rights. Paul discusses the importance of redefining retirement as financial independence and freedom, and that true financial independence means having the choice to work or start a business because you want to, not because you have to. Paul encourages everyone to pursue new opportunities and passions during their retirement with the idea of leaving behind memories and experiences rather than just money. Now, on to this thought-provoking conversation with Paul Armson. Paul Armson, a very warm welcome to the Humans versus Retirement podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Dan.
Paul, I can't wait to have the conversation. This was meant to be episode 1, season 1 of the podcast. I really, really wanted to get you on right at the start because of the impact you've had on me as a financial planner, but also on my clients through your wonderful book, Enough, which for everyone watching, I'm holding up now. And actually, I have just stepped out of a client meeting, a new client meeting, where they downloaded the book off our website. We've got a branded copy of your book and read it. And they've come in and they were quoting the book, and we had a great conversation about life and what they're looking to achieve. They even took 5 copies of the book with them to give to family and friends. And they said, look, this is one of the best books that we've ever read in trying to set the foundations of our life up and what retirement means for us. So number one, thank you for writing such an amazing book and for supporting the work that we do on that. And I suppose with that, I think it's really interesting for the listeners to understand how you got to where you got to, how you come to write the book, because in the book there's some pretty personal stuff in there about how you got to where you got to. And I think that sets us up beautifully for the conversation that we're going to have over the next 35, 40 minutes.
Well, first of all, thanks for saying nice things about the book. I think my English teacher would be absolutely amazed that I actually managed to write a book at all. But anyway, thank you for that. So the book came about because of my experience as a financial advisor, which I'll tell you about in a second, but also my frustration also of looking at the financial services industry. And I felt like someone needed to start telling people what I call the truth about money. And that's what the book's designed to do. It's to give people a little bit of a wake-up call about this thing that I call the truth about money. But I suppose my story starts when I fell into the job as a financial advisor at the age of 22. So I joined quite young and I started becoming a financial advisor quite young, really. And then for the first 8 years of my career as a financial advisor, I did what all financial advisors do. I basically would see anybody at any time of day or night, even work weekends. I took work home with me. I worked evenings. All the time, the financial services world and the world of a financial advisor, you can become very, very busy. And that was me. So I was very, very busy, working really, really hard. But I'd been told, or rather, I'd been inspired to work hard by my dad. And I need to tell you about my dad because this is a driving factor, I suppose, behind my story. And the fact that my dad was a welder in a factory. And when he wasn't welding in a factory, he would do all the hours he possibly could as a welder. And then when he wasn't working in a factory, he would come home, get changed into his gardening clothes, and then go out and do gardening jobs for people. So my dad was never there. He was always out there working really, really hard, so that we could have a nice life when I was growing up as a kid with my sisters. So I hardly ever saw my dad because he was always out at work. So me growing up, my role model was my dad, and the message was, you work hard, you work hard. So when I fell into, when I left school, I was a carpenter, and then I sort of worked hard to become a trainee quantity surveyor, and then I was working hard as a quantity surveyor. And then I see this job about being a financial advisor, and I then joined to become a financial advisor. And then, as I said, I was then working extremely hard as a financial advisor, very, very hard indeed, busy. And I wasn't seeing my kids, and I wasn't doing all those things because I was so busy working. By that time, I got my own business. And at the age of 30, then something happened that was my wake-up call. And what happened was my mum died suddenly. Okay. So here I am working really hard, and my mum dies suddenly. And what I then witnessed I was then 30. At the age of 30, I then witnessed this incredible grief in my dad. Because what I witnessed is this man was 59, who spent 40 years of his life working really hard, just like I was doing, by the way. But he'd worked hard as a welder in a factory and doing all these jobs, working really, really hard, working in the hope of having a great retirement with my mum. So suddenly, at the age of 59, my mum's not there anymore. And this regret and grief in my dad, not just for losing my mum, but realizing that they'd never really lived together because he was always working, you see. So the first thing that I suppose happened to me at the age of 30 was realizing this thing, that life isn't a rehearsal. My mum was the first person in my life to die. I'd never really lost anybody before of any importance. And then suddenly my mum's gone. So I'm in pieces. But this grief in my dad is just the most thing that stands out for me. And I realized that I started to listen to what my dad was saying. My dad was then constantly saying these words, if only. If only I'd been there for your mom. If only I'd spent more time with her. If only I'd bought her more flowers. If only I'd done this. And he also said things like, if only I'd spent more time with you, Paul, when you were growing up. If only I'd gone fishing with you. If only I'd taken you to see the Wolves play and all those things. He was always talking about if only, but he missed those chances, you see, because he's always working. Now, and also, I also remember throughout that period of time, while my dad was working hard and while my mum was there, he was always talking to my mum about one day we'll do these things. One day we'll do stuff. One day we'll buy a caravan. One day we'll go to Spain. One day we'll do all the time, one day. And then suddenly she's gone. Okay. So anyway, I had this massive wake up call at the age of 30. And I catch myself one day after my mum has died, and I look in the mirror and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I'm making the same mistake as my dad here because I'm working all the time. I'm not seeing my kids. I had my children quite young. So I'm working all the hours the universe sends, just like my dad. And I just realized there and then that I was making that same mistake that my dad had made for all those years. But what happened to me a few weeks later, after my mom, I think was the catalyst behind the book, I guess, because what happened was 2 weeks after my mum died, I finally got the strength and the emotional strength back together again to go back to work. And I remember going to see this couple who were about the same age as my mum. And I was doing my first meeting with these potential clients, Bob and Sandra, I call them in the book. They're in the book, okay? And I remember talking to them about them and their life and the things about what they wanted to do. And for some reason, I was acutely aware of the words they were using, because what they were saying to me when I asked them about what they wanted to do and their goals and things, they said these words: well, one day, Paul, we'd like to do this. And one day, Paul, we'd like to do that. And one day, Paul, we'd like, and they basically gave me a list of all the things they would like to do one day. Now, because they were the similar ages to my mum and my dad, for some reason, in that meeting, I sort of lost it a little bit. And I think my emotional state sort of came back to it. And I remember slapping their table and saying, what do you mean by one day? What do you mean by one day? I remember sort of subjecting them to this emotion, really. What do you mean by one day? What do you mean? Why not do these things now? Why not do these things now? Why wait? And basically, I explained to them that life is not a rehearsal. Precious time is slipping away. Why not do these things now? You've got the money. Why not do these things now? And they said to me, it's all right for you saying that, Paul, but can we afford to do these things now? And that's when I realized that I needed to find out. As a financial advisor, my job was to find out whether they could afford to do these things. So the reason why I'm sharing that story with you is because there was this unique experience that I had of the loss of my mom, the extreme grief within me, the regret I saw in my dad, and then faced with a couple who were potentially going to make the same mistake as my mum and my dad. Are you with me? Because they were working really, really hard. They weren't spending enough time on holiday and doing the things they could be doing. And I suppose I had this mini wake-up call about a couple of things. One, that life is not a rehearsal. And the fact is that the majority of people, I think, go through their life forgetting that. And, you know, I think we go through our life like this, that we're here in our life right now, and over here, we're going to die. We know we're going to die one day. We're not that stupid, you know, we're not stupid. But what we tend to do is we tend to go through life as though this is what's happening. We live like we've got forever. But of course, we haven't. It could be over tomorrow. We don't know how long we've got. And this couple were living like that, like my mom and dad were, always living like they've got forever. One day we'll do stuff, but of course, one day might never come. So I think in that meeting, I realized that I needed to find the answer to this client. So by that time, I then invested in some software, some financial planning software. This is back in 1991. I invested in some what's now called cash flow modeling software to enable me to crunch the numbers to find out whether they could afford to do these things now. So I used this software to help them to see that they were financially independent already. They could retire now, they could get on with their life, and they could do these things now. Now, when I went back to show them this, this is my first client I ever did any of this work with. When I went back to show that client that they were actually okay, they could do these things now, they were going to be okay, I crunched all the numbers several times. I stress tested it and made sure absolutely everything was right about the assumptions. And the look of relief and the satisfaction of these people understanding that they were going to be okay, because all they wanted to know was, can we do this stuff? Are we going to be okay for the rest of our life? And the answer was definitely yes. They were already there, but they didn't know they were there. And that's why they would have continued working in a job they didn't really enjoy anymore, and possibly died early, like my mom sadly did. So I don't know why I'm telling you all of that, other than the fact that I suppose I'm lucky in the fact that I woke up early to this idea that life's not a rehearsal. So at the age of 30, I just started to notice things about how even then, the older you get, the faster time seems to go. Now, I'm sure some of your listeners here are probably getting it to that stage in their life when they can't believe that we're now recording this in February, and there's only a few seconds ago when it was Christmas, and there's only a few years ago when it was the millennium, and suddenly you realize that life is speeding up the older you get, and then you're dead, and then you missed it, you know? So I suppose I had this inspirational experience of realizing there's more to my job than peddling financial products on behalf of the financial services industry, which I didn't like doing anyway. I found more meaning in helping that client realize they were going to be okay and that they could do stuff. I just decided at that point forward that my job then is not to just organize financial products for people, but it's to help them to understand where are they now and where are they heading financially and what they need to do to get and keep the life that they say that they want. And that's when I suppose, conceived the idea of lifestyle financial planning, because that was basically what I called it back in 1990, 91. And I decided that every client that I encounter is going to have that experience. From now on, that's what I do. There's no excuses anymore. I'm not peddling products on behalf of the industry. No matter how much the industry wants me to sell their financial products, that is not my job. If a client needs a financial product, then yeah, I can find one. But first of all, we've got to find out where you are in your life right now, Mr. Client, and also understand where you're trying to get to. And I suppose that was my wake-up call, Dan, to be honest with you. That moment of my mum dying, closely followed by this client who was saying the same words that my parents had used for many, many years, and they'd missed the opportunity. And I didn't want this client to miss the opportunity like my parents had. And I guess that's the turning point in my life as a financial advisor, which is why eventually I wrote the book.
Thanks so much for opening up, Paul, and sharing that. I think it's so crucial, and it's led to a couple of things, isn't it? It's led to the founding of the lifestyle financial planning movement that really just was not around in the UK at all at that point. There were some glimmers of this maybe over in the States, but nothing really here. So it led to that wake up call for you, which has obviously helped many people that you've worked with, but helped many people like myself and other financial planners to start to think about this very, very, very differently. And I want to get onto lifestyle financial planning in a bit with you, but obviously the book entitled Enough: How Much Money Do You Need for the Rest of Your Life? It is just the byproduct of that conversation you've had. We need to foundationally put life at the center of people's plans and answer that question for them to enable them to not waste their years and their time. Because as you say, and I think the term that, and you've said it a couple of times, the term that resonates with everybody that I talk to, people that read the book and the work that we do, that life is not a rehearsal. And I think people have probably realized that more so than ever with what's happened over the last 3 or 4 years in the world. I think people have had many deaths in families that have happened suddenly through COVID, etc. And I've definitely seen a wake up call to that motto that people have had. So yeah, I think it's such an important message.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I suppose I went probably over the top with this, but I just started all the time. I just kept observing people saying, putting off stuff, not taking a risk, not living life to the full, not booking that holiday, not whatever. And it's all this. I've got more time to do this stuff. I've got more time. And then at the same time, there's lots of examples of people who never had that time. And I thought, hang on a minute, if I build a service proposition that revolves around a fact that cannot be denied. So whereas most financial advisors build a proposition around a service proposition that revolves around financial products and the performance of the financial products and getting you a better return on your money and all those sort of things that often financial advisors can get sucked into, all of that can be, I realized all of that can be argued with, and a client will argue with you. If you're trying to say, I'll get you a better performance, this is the fund to use, a client can say, hang on a second, I've read about this one, and there's an argument. And I thought, that's just stupid service proposition. Why bother doing that? I'm going to create a service proposition on which no client can deny, and that is, you've got a limited amount of time on this planet. Therefore, what does it you want to do between now and the day you're dead in a box? And therefore, if I can identify what that is for a client, in other words, not only, what's the life all about, where are they now, how they get to where they are now, and more importantly, where they're trying to get to between now and the day they're in a box, what sort of things do they want to do in the time they've got left? Then if I can remind them that life is not a rehearsal, they can't argue with me. Nobody can argue with me, nor can they argue with me that life is speeding up the older they get. So I thought that's going to be my service proposition. Forget the products, okay? This fund or that fund is not going to change anybody's life, but waking people up to that fact and reminding them of that fact often, that's valuable. Because I think what it is, Dan, and I think you've seen this as well with clients, is you can say life's not a rehearsal, but not really, really get it, And what happens is, I've often thought about this, that you might, occasionally you go through your life and forgetting all about it. And then somebody dies, someone tells you that someone died that you know or know of, or a film star or something. And you go, blow me, never. Never. Don't tell me they've died. No. I only saw them last week and they're dead. Really? Wow. And suddenly you get the wake-up call that my God, life's not a rehearsal, is it? And you might even go to the funeral and you might even look into that grave as that coffin's lowered in, and you're really, really acutely aware of life not being a rehearsal. But the next day, you're back at the office and this is going on all over again. This living like you've got forever because you've forgotten about it. Your mind gets so preoccupied with stuff that doesn't really matter. You forget to remind yourself there's a limited amount of time on this. And therefore you take yourself too seriously most of the time, and you never realize the opportunities that are right in front of you to live a great life now and do stuff now while you still can. Sorry, I'm passionate about this. Can you tell?
Oh, look, honestly, we could go on for, look, I think it's so vital for people to understand that message, right? As you absolutely said, you get reminded, it feels like it's reminded daily, if not weekly now, about life is not a rehearsal. So you get reminded, you have a little flashback, you have some thoughts, right? I'm going to make sure that but carrying that through and having consistency and the intention to continue to do that is really challenging for people, because particularly in a modern day world, like I talk about a modern day retirement a lot, in a modern day noisy world where you've got not only the financial industry chucking a load of rubbish at you, which we can get onto in a bit, but you've just got other things just chucking noise and rubbish, and you've got the comparison on social media of other people and all this stuff chucking into your life now. And I think it's easier than ever to fall back into a kind of a way of life that doesn't remind you of those values or keep within those values. And that's why ongoing planning, ongoing working with advisors and planners is so important, because it's that constant pull back into reality that is vital for this. And it comes back to your point around, you mentioned kind of financial independence and time. I think we need to start to redefine this retirement thing and go, right, this is now being about financially independent. But in terms of the life is not a rehearsal mantra, do you believe that retirees or people approaching this second half of life, do you believe that they don't actually truly understand the concept of time as much as they should do?
I think that the older you get, the more acutely aware you become of it. That is a good thing, clearly. But by then it can be too late, because I often say as you go through your life, you've got these goals and hopes and dreams to do stuff. But then by the time you've got the money to do it, your knees are gone, your hips are gone, and you're worn out and you're knackered, and you can't do those things anymore. You should have done it earlier, and that's where a great financial plan comes in, to say, can I take 6 months off to go and do these things now? Can I have a mini retirement? Can I potentially retire early? I mean, it's in the book, but my story is I took this seriously on the basis that if I'm a financial planner and I believe this stuff, then I've got to walk the talk. So I set an ambition to myself to retire by the age of 45. I didn't fully retire, but I managed to semi-retire at 45 with a nice boat, and with the intention to spend 6 months of my life sailing and 6 months of my life working. And when I worked, I'd work really, really hard, because it would be there, done hard work, to then have 6 months of enjoyment doing what I like to do with my soulmate, Lynn. And that's what I chose to do. And that is something that obviously has a financial implication. Some would say I was playing when I should have been working, whereas my argument was too many people are working when they should be playing. So it's all a balancing act between the life we've got and the life that we want. But the point is, you've got freedom to do what it is that you want to do, so long as you understand the concept of your number, which is what the book's about as well. In fact, let me hold it up. The book's called Enough, right? How much money do you need for the rest of your life? But the big point is, enough for what? I mean, that's a starting point. Okay, so if you don't know what you want your life to look like, how can you possibly understand how much it's going to cost you? It all comes down to your life and your lifestyle. Lifestyle that's why I called it lifestyle financial planning. Lifestyle financial planning is basically creating a financial plan to achieve your desired lifestyle without running out of money or dying with too much, which is another subject, which I know Dan is particularly passionate about. But it's your money is there to serve your life, not the other way around. And I think when you get a fix on the idea of lifestyle financial planning and this idea of the number and realizing that it's all about lifestyle and big lifestyle equals big number on the whole, little lifestyle equals little number, the starting point is understanding the lifestyle you've got and the lifestyle that you want. And then from that, you can then start calculating your number. And then from that, you can work out how much is enough. And from that, you can work out how much you need to do to accumulate enough. Or more often than not, work out you've already got enough. So therefore, why are you doing a job that you dislike? Or why are you still doing this when you could be doing that? And that's the thing that I think is great for financial planners, is helping people to realize that this answer to how much is enough. And I would argue quite simply, the financial planner's primary job is to answer that question, how much is enough? After understanding enough for what? So that's what a real financial planner does. It's helping clients to have that peace of mind of knowing what clients need to do to get enough, and that they're going to be okay, and that they can live the life they want without running out of money or dying with too much. That's what real financial planning is. Mm-hmm. But the financial industry likes to get it very complicated, and not complicated. The financial industry wants to take the focus off that stuff and put it on the financial products of financial planning. And this product is better than that product. And you need this portfolio, and you need some of this in your portfolio. So the industry's got a different mindset. And that industry pressure is what messes with the brains and minds of financial advisors generally. I mean, basically, financial advisors are too busy focusing on stuff that doesn't matter to focus on their clients, I think, the majority. That's why a lot of financial advisors don't like me, because they realize that is what's going on. The industry wants to meddle with the advisor's head in the same way the industry wants to meddle with consumers' heads. Mm. So the industry wants consumers to feel insecure, feeling like they're never going to have enough, being afraid to spend their money. Why? Because the industry makes money off the client's money. So the last thing the industry wants is for the consumer, the client, to spend their money. Dan, what do you think about this? I mean, you've written better stuff about this than I have, but it drives me nuts that so many advisors are letting clients, or rather preventing clients from living a great life because we don't want them to spend their money, which is nuts. So so a good financial planner, I believe, will do the opposite to what the industry wants the advisors to do.
Yeah, I mean, you know my thoughts on this. I stood on your stage and talked about this at your wonderful conference. I think what's really interesting for me is if anyone reads a good book about marketing and how companies get you to buy their product, you will understand everything that's wrong with the financial service industry. You know, a great marketing tactic to get someone to buy your product is to instill the fear into them, create fear, create insecurity, create discomfort, create questions. And by doing that, you can then miraculously come in as the hero and provide the solution to those fears. That's all the financial services industry ever does. It plays on fears and insecurities. And in my experience, because we put the lifestyle at the center of what people want to do, most people's lifestyles post full-time work are significantly less than what they believe they're going to be. So in my experience, most people's enough is significantly less than what they thought it would be. And because that is that the financial services industry has rammed down their throats that you need £1 million and you need to draw this down and you need to make sure you do all of this. And actually, when you get to the nuts and bolts of this, when you find out people's values and their purpose and their passions and what they want to do, it's often quite simple. It's sprinkled with a little bit of dreamy stuff on top, but you're not turning left on the plane every time you go on holiday. It might happen once. And so putting their life and their passions and their purpose at the center of this means that more often than not, I think pretty much everybody that we deal with, when we get into the depths of it, they have too much. They've got too much. And they are going to pay the tax man a bill at the end of this. And they don't realize that. And I think it's such an important message to get out there that real financial planning is threefold. And you mentioned the three hats in the work that you do. But real financial planning means that you put on a financial advisor and you think about the products right at the end of the process. I do all the work up front, and then I need to find out the things that can support your life.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I can sort of conceive back in the early 90s. It was actually a client of mine at the time who he was a marketing consultant. And he said to me one day, he said, the trouble with you, Paul, is you see yourself as a financial advisor, but I don't see you as my financial advisor, because what you've done for me is far more than financial advice. I know you've organized this and I know you've organized that for me, and you've protected my estate for this, that, and the other, and whatever. But you're going around calling yourself a financial advisor, but you're not. For me, you're my life planner. And that he told me that. And he said, if I think you're my life planner and you do for other clients what you've done for me, then surely that's what you should be promoting yourself as, not a financial advisor, because no one likes financial advisors. So why are you making it hard for yourself? See, why don't you ask your 10 best clients what they think about what I've just said? So I did. And I remember phoning up these clients and said, I've got this client of mine. He thinks I'm more of a life planner than I'm a financial advisor. What do you think? And they said, yeah, you're right. You've helped me to plan my life. And I thought, I might be onto something here. So that's when I started to realize, even in this is 1992-ish, okay, way back. And I thought, hang on a minute then. That means there's three parts of my job. There's financial advice, which is where I place and find a financial product. There's financial planning, and there's life planning. So I actually flipped it around. So I said, basically, the first job is life planning. So if I'm a great financial planner, then I've got to find out about my clients. So life planning is understanding from a client's perspective, where are they now? How do they get to where they are now? My job as a financial planner is to understand their journey. How do they get to what turmoils and life challenges they've got through to be where they are now? I want to show empathy and understanding about their journey so far, understand where they are now. And when I've done that, I feel like I've earned the right then to understand and find out about their goals for their future, not until. I've got to know about their past before I can start digging into their future. So that's what I started to realize as the job of a life planner, where you're trying to get to. What sort of life have you got now, and what sort of life do you want to have going forward? That's my first job. The next job is financial planning. In other words, what needs to happen to get that? In other words, crunching all the numbers, looking at the assets, the liabilities, the inflows, the outflows, and all that sort of stuff. That's financial planning. What needs to happen to get enough to do that? Okay. Then, if that financial plan indicates that you need a financial product, if it does, then, and only then, will I put on my third hat, which is that of a financial advisor, to find the best and find out the right product to suit the needs of your financial plan. But it could be that your financial plan doesn't even need a financial product. Okay. Anyway, I'm only saying that to you because that was my wake up as well, early after all of this started to sort of meld itself together. And that gave me power, because I realized that most financial advisors only wear one hat, and that's the financial advice hat. So all they want to talk about is financial products, because that's what the industry wants them to do, you see. So straight away, back in the early 90s, I started to differentiate myself just by saying, well, hang on a minute, most financial advisors just do that, but I do this, and that if necessary. Which would you rather deal with? It was a no-brainer. They wanted to deal with me. And then the point then started to happen, and I think this is where advisors are missing the trick, is I would be in a position that if I get someone introduced to me or someone approaches me and they want to talk about pensions or investments or whatever, because I really believe in this three hat stuff, right? Totally believe in it. That's how it should be. And most clients get this, by the way. They get it more than advisors get it. That means if a client approaches me asking for advice on investments and pensions, my first point was, who says you need a pension? Who says you need a financial product of any sort? Until we've done this, how do we know? Okay. Now that gives me power, because that's how the job should be done in that respect. But unfortunately, the majority of financial advisors would never say that, because they want to sell you a financial product. You with me? Now that's where me working with people like you, Dan, and all the people within my Inspiring Advisors community, you get that. You get that that's how the job should be done. So my advice to anyone listening to this who's a normal consumer is, if your financial advisor is spending more time talking about investments and performance and portfolios and indexes and Sharpe ratios and whatever, I'd run a mile personally, because the chances are they're what I call a money-focused advisor that's only interested in your money. What you really want is someone that's interested in you and your life and where are you now and where you're trying to get to. That's what you want to be dealing with. A great financial planner does that first, rather than talk about the stuff that really doesn't matter by comparison. I mean, the best fund, unless it's Apple or Uber or whatever, is not going to change your life, but great financial planning delivered focused on your life more than it is your money is what helps you to make wise decisions about living your life to the full when you've got this chance to do so, because you ain't coming back once it's gone.
Hi everyone, Dan here. I just wanted to jump in real quick to say that if you are thinking about or unsure where to start with your retirement plans, then I've put together what I believe to be one of the best free resources for you. My Retirement Toolkit is packed with videos, guides, webinars, worksheets, blogs, and podcast episodes, and is completely free to download. Just go to the show notes where you will find the link. Now, let's get back to the show. That's where the public are incentivized, maybe incentivized is the right word, congealed to kind of focus on, and they're, because they believe that this is all a maths problem. This is a financial problem that needs financial things to solve it. And you see the adverts from big life companies saying, have financial peace of mind by buying XYZ pension. And what's really interesting is, bar none, everybody that I work with in this space that is thinking about their retirement, when you do life planning followed by financial planning, and you get to the point where you go, right, now I'm going to talk to you about the things that you kind of need to do, or the things you need to have. It's one, less than what they thought, and two, a lot simpler. So once you've done all that stuff, you only need a couple of things potentially, if at all. And then investing and risk becomes, because, and you put this in the book, but I mean, I know inflation's a big topic and I know it's, but if you can get to where you want to get to and have all your money sitting in cash, why do you need to put it at the mercy of the stock markets? Why does it need to be in this and need to that? Look, the vast majority of people need some sort of investment exposure and and the tax wrappers and all of that stuff. But everyone just thinks that that's where you start. It's kind of, I've got a problem. What pension do you want? And quite simply, I've started working with people that have had financial advisors that have focused on that, and they've come to work with me, and they haven't been spending their money for the last 5 years when they're going to leave 2 million quid on the table, because they've never had the peace of mind and they've never had the comfort to spend their money, because they've never focused on them. It's always been about their money, and that causes more anxiety.
It does. I mean, that's, as I say, the driver and the factor behind it is the industry. It's got so much power and so much money to influence consumers and also advisors. And even the profession is influenced by the money in the industry. And it just drives me absolutely nuts. And I guess that's why I'm so passionate about my message, I suppose. But I forgot to mention to you one of the biggest drivers and why I get so angry, if you like, for want of a better word, not so much angry, but annoyed by all of this, is that there was this one particular client where I was introduced to this client who I've been introduced to them because Maureen and they're in the book as Margaret and John. That's not their real names, obviously. But I'd been introduced to Margaret and John because they'd found out that John had got a terminal illness and was not going to expect to live very long at all. So my client who introduced me wanted me to make John wanted Margaret to know that she was going to be okay when John passed. Okay. So when I went to see this couple in my first meeting, I went to see them in their home, and I found out about the problem and the illness and so on. I was going through what I call my fact-finding meeting with them to find out about where they were and what they'd got and all those things. And they pulled out for me, they said they'd already got a financial planner. And makes me wonder, well, why are you talking to me then if you've already got a financial planner? But they pulled out a document, and on the front of it said financial plan, produced by name of the advisor and his qualifications. And he got some of the best qualifications you could ever have in the UK as a financial planner. Okay. Now, this financial plan, when I opened the page of this financial plan, was nothing more than a schedule of investments held by the client and a schedule of recommended changes to be made to that portfolio and a recommended new investment for that particular year into a tax-efficient ISA, PEPs and ISAs at the time. Let's go back a bit. Now, okay, so meanwhile, I just take all of this in and think, oh, right, okay, so you've got a financial plan produced by a financial planner, but John has now got 6 months to live. I then basically did my financial planning work and found out that that client had got more than enough money. He could have retired 5 years ago. But that client hadn't retired 5 years ago. He'd continued working in a job that he hated, which arguably could have been the result of, could have caused this terminal illness, which is whether it did or whether it didn't, I don't know. But he could have retired 5 years ago. And he and Margaret could have done stuff in that 5 year period. Instead, he'd now left it too late and got 6 months to live. But that well-qualified financial planner had failed to help that client to understand that they were there already. They could have retired at that time. They could have got on with their life. All that financial planner had done, I say financial planner in inverted commas, had just produced a portfolio of investments and invested a bit more money for that client. He hadn't done any financial planning. And he certainly didn't ask the right questions about that client and where they are in their life and what they wanted to do in that life and how much they enjoyed their work or how much they didn't enjoy their work, as the case may be. So the point is, that was something that really, really annoyed me about the fact that that client's life could have been saved potentially by doing the job properly, but instead the financial planner didn't do any financial planning, but he still parades as a financial planner. You with me? And that's one of the things I'm really annoyed about is everyone's a financial planner these days, but how many of them are really doing proper financial planning? That's the thing that we need to really think this one through. It's deceiving the public. I think so many people, you know, they've just changed their job title from financial advisor to financial planner, but they're not doing real financial planning. And that's where we've got a problem globally, I think. I think the problem's just as bad, if not worse, in America. Elsewhere, there's just too many people calling themselves financial planners. And now lifestyle financial planners help. I created that bloody title, and now everyone's a lifestyle financial planner. But they're not doing it. They're just using it as a marketing ploy. The bottom line for any person listening to this is, as I say, if you're dealing with a financial advisor, financial planner, lifestyle financial, call them what you will, if their focus is on the money more than it is on you, you need to change your advisor. Okay, sorry about this, but that's the bottom line here. You need to be working with somebody that does a job differently and focuses on you and your life more than they do your money. But again, the reason I hope people can understand why I'm so passionate about this, because that client was. That advisor failed that client.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, I think that the trouble is the community of advisors that you've built is phenomenal, but it's still a kind of, I suppose, it's a drop in the ocean compared to the amount of financial advisors out there. So I think sometimes we get in our own bubble and we believe that more people are doing this, and then get shocked when we come across a client that's come to us that hasn't had this stuff done. But the story I've said before on this is I remember taking on a client just before COVID, and he was doing a bit of a beauty parade and kind of he wanted to work with the financial advisors to help him with his retirement, and he saw 4 or 5 financial advisors, planners, and I remember I was the last one that he come in to see, and had a great conversation with him, hour and a half, a couple of hours talking about life and what was going on, and he kind of went away and he phoned up on the way home. He lived about 40 minutes from the office. He phoned up on the way home and he said, "Dan, I'd love to work with you." And I was like, "Oh, that's great, Neil." And I said, "Just out of interest, I know you were doing, you were talking to other advisors. Why us?" And he went, "Because you still haven't asked me how much money I've got." And I think that's the point, right? I mean, it's the amount of zeros that are after in your bank balance or your pension. It's kind of irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. And if again, my tip on this is, if one of the first questions, or if they ask you questions about your money in the first meeting, you know where their focus is going to be. And so I think it's vitally important. And I know you've got you've got some great consumer directed educational stuff that you've done, and exactly the book points to this as well. So yeah, couldn't agree more. I want to touch on something with you, because we've had this we touched on this a little bit, but in your book, you talk about money types. And quite rightly, and I think it's the simplest and best definition I've ever come across when it comes to, there are three types of people when it comes to thinking about their retirement in brackets, or have they got enough, or etc. You've got not enough, got too much, or the just right. And each one of those has obviously got challenges attached to them. But I want to touch on one because it's where I spend a lot of my time. And again, this is irrelevant of the value of assets, but the vast majority of people that I tend to work with have got too much. When you delve into life and you delve what's most important to them. So the Mr. and Mrs. got too much. What are the problems that you kind of see for those people?
Okay. For the benefit of your listeners, let me just remind you what I meant by the three types, first of all, because then that gives context to the got too muches. But I suppose this is through the period of the 90s and early 2000s, I started to realize that of all the people out there that you want as clients, and the ones that I was dealing with, that I realized it was just a simple formula. You can only be one of three type of people, really. And my job is to help that client to understand which of those three types they are. And the first type is a not enough. In other words, what that means is that you haven't currently got enough money to maintain your desired lifestyle. And therefore, what a not enough person needs to know is how much do they need, how much is enough, and how much is enough for them to maintain the life that they want to have. And if they can never accumulate that enough, then they need to think twice about the lifestyle they've got now and the lifestyle they expect to have going forward. It's just a numbers game, basically, to work out the importance of understanding that fact. Because and our job as financial planners is to help people understand just how much is enough. And as you say, Dan, sometimes that enough is less than you might imagine. And therefore, some people, I think, freeze and they don't do anything at all when they actually could just do a little and get an awful good way. And then the other type of client, which you mentioned just, is the got too muches. These are people who are never going to run out of money ever. They're going to go to their grave with way too much. And they've got a different type of problem in the fact that they're not going to run out of money. They're just going to die with too much. And what that means is the tax man's going to take an awful lot of that money. But the tax isn't the problem because it's not their problem. They're dead. Normally, it's the family that pay the tax. The biggest problem for them is they could be lying on their deathbed with all this money, but then realize that they didn't do stuff when they had the chance. So that's the big job for you, for any financial planner, is to help clients realize that if they're got too much, clients come to understand that they're got too much. And is that really what they want to do? Leave a load of money to the tax man? More importantly, miss out on the only chance they've got at this life to do stuff now? If not spend more money on themselves, then why not gift and help people while they can now, whilst they're around to see it? But the other big factor with the got too much is when you realize you've got too much, a good financial planner will be making you think, well, hang on a minute, why are you trying to get 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 15% a year return on your money, which is causing you undue stress and worrying about your money all the time, when actually you've got enough already? So why not understand this and accept that you can de-risk your investments and have more peace of mind in your life and have the freedom to spend it while you can? And that's where I used to call myself a giver of permission. My job was to give people permission to do stuff now while they can. And that is freedom. That means people can sleep at night rather than worrying and stressing about their money all the time, which is what the financial porn, I call it, the financial press and the industry want people to be worried about their money all the time. And that's where we come in as financial planners to say, hang on a minute, you're going to be okay. Relax. Let's de-risk. But the other category, though, is the interesting one, Dan. It's the just rights. And what I mean by the just rights, because I think there's an awful lot of people in this country who are just right. What that means is they've got, or they're going to have, just about the right amount of money for the rest of their life. They don't really need to worry about money really at all, apart from the financial porn telling them they should be. From a financial planning point of view and a financial projections point of view, they're going to be okay. If there's any one slight problem, the majority of these people don't know that. So I always like to say to people that if you were just right, that you were going to be okay, but you didn't know you were going to be okay, how would you live your life? The chances are you'd still worry about money when you don't need to. You'd keep on working when you could actually stop now. You'd waste your life putting things off when actually there's no reason why you can do these things now. As you say, you turn right in the plane when if actually you could turn left, or you could buy that better bottle of booze that you might fancy. You might have that extra holiday, but you don't because you don't know you're okay. And that's the biggest area of concern for me is so many people still worry about their money when they're going to be okay. And that is a reason why you need to be dealing with a lifestyle financial planner that's going to help you to understand you're going to be okay, or you've got too much. And that's the thing that I find the most pleasing about the work that I did as a financial planner. And hopefully now the benefit for people who read my books is to say, well, actually, I'm thinking about the money the wrong way here. I'm thinking about accumulating more, when actually, why? What's the point? You're only here once. Why are you still doing it? And I think it's not to say to people, don't be inspired to do well. Don't be inspired to accumulate more. Do that. But if you know that you're going to be okay, and then let's say you're going to be okay, you're going to be financially okay for the rest of your life, but you still choose to work, right? Well, that's fantastic because now you're working because you want to, not because you have to. You with me? And I think that's the big thing about building a plan to become financially independent. You come to this stage when actually you are financially independent. You're not financially dependent on things. You're financially independent. And now you've got the freedom to choose whether you work or not. But if you do work or if you do start a business, you're doing it because you want to, not because you have to. And the way I've seen it so far is that the way the universe works is when you're doing things for love and because you're doing it because you want to, not because you have to, that's when you get the biggest reward. You don't get the big rewards because you're working because you have to. You get the rewards because you're working because you want to, and because you want to contribute and help people with your time on this planet.
Yeah.
Am I waffling on?
No, absolutely brilliant. I think that a couple of key things for me there, just to mention, is that kind of, I think I said before, working in your retirement or working should be part of a lot of people's retirement plans. And again, we need to redefine work. I think for too long, people have rightly associated work with money. It doesn't have to be like that. I mean, obviously, getting financially rewarded for doing work is important and it helps us feel valued about the work we're doing. But if you're going to work and you're getting financially rewarded, but you don't need to be financially rewarded, that's a whole different ballgame. And that means you're in more control of your time, more in control of the work that you're doing. So I think that's really important. Working because you want to, and that gives you purpose to pull back the duvet to be able to go and do something that you're passionate about. And I see many people approaching second phase of life that are quitting a career and going to do something now they've thought about for 20, 30 years. I've always wanted to do this, or I've wanted to retrain in this and I want to do that. And it just, re-energizes people at that point. And also the other point I want to pick up on and is around the just rights and the got too muches. And we need to reframe this in our head, right? For anyone listening, you're not leaving money on the table. And Paul has said this, right? You're not leaving money on the table. What you're leaving on the table is memories and experiences. That's what you're leaving. Forget the money thing. You end up, if you look back and you've got £1 million in your bank account and you're in your late 90s, all you've done is left memories and experiences on the table. And I think real financial planning allows you to be prudent long-term, but have fun in the short term and do all those things that you want to do. And I think that's so important for people to realize that it's a memories, experience and time thing, not a Excel spreadsheet, numbers, cash flow, returns thing that ends up at the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Paul, this has been such an enlightening conversation. I want to wrap it up and end it on a question for you. I mean, I know there's many people that listen to this podcast that are not in the UK, but in the UK, we've got a couple of people, whether you like them or not, but there's a couple of people that have quite big audiences and stages when it comes to talking about kind of personal finance. One of them is called Martin Lewis. If you had a prime time Saturday night slot, you had a 2-hour show to talk about this stuff on a Saturday night at 8:00. In terms of that lifestyle financial planning message that you have driven and crafted over the many years, And if you could speak directly to the public, what are the 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you would say to people that are planning for retirement or thinking about their money that would really inspire and be most impactful for them?
That's a really interesting thing you say, Dan. I didn't expect you to ask that question, and now I'm on the spot. But it reminded me of an idea I had many years ago, and that is, I thought of all the programs that should be on TV, surely one of the biggest programs that should be on a regular series should be a program called The Number, where every week, whether it's Saturday night, prime time, or what, I don't know, but you had a program called The Number, and every single week you had a financial expert that's credible, talking with clients and helping clients understand just how much they need to accumulate to get the life that they want, and really to understand this concept about the number and how much is enough, and helping people and show different types of clients, the people who are in their 30s or 40s, what their financial planning might look like, and people in their 50s and 60s and 70s, and they've got too much and not enough, and so on. I think that would be the ultimate, not the ultimate TV program. It would be for us financial planners, I suppose, because we get excited by such things. But yeah. I think the majority of people, it would just give great examples about, wow, did you see that guy on telly? You already had enough, and I'm in that situation. And then it would just open up people's minds to what's possible, So I think that's probably where I'd hang my hat. The idea of having some form of communication with people about how life and money are connected, but it's life that comes first. And your money is there to serve your life, not the other way around. And therefore, the starting point is, what life have you got now, and what sort of life do you want to have going forward? It's one of the things that I suppose this leans into is, a lot of financial advisors we know talk about goals and how everyone should have goals. And I've always found goals, I hate the term goals, because if you ask a client what their goals are, most people freeze and they don't really know. And then here you are as a financial advisor, put them on the spot saying, so what are your goals? And they haven't got a clue. And if they have got a clue, the goals they've got today will be very different to the goals they're going to have tomorrow. So it's all weird. I'd rather think about possibilities and things like that. That's one of the possibilities for your life, is what's more interesting. But I've always felt that I remember this line, because a client asked me once, he said, my trouble, Paul, is you're talking to me about my life and my future, but I don't really know what I want. And how can you create a financial plan for somebody who doesn't know what they want? But I remember in this second replying to them and saying, you know what? You're not the only one. I don't think a lot of people know what they want, but they do know what they don't want. And what they don't want is anything less than they've got now. Am I right? In other words, people don't want to go backwards in their life. So if you've accumulated and you've got to a stage in your life when you've got a lifestyle that you enjoy, the chances are you want to maintain that lifestyle going forward. So the starting point for any real financial plan is understanding that. Where am I now? What's my life now? What does it cost now? And if nothing else, you should be planning to keep that life going forward, because that's the least that you expect. So if you want to buy a Ferrari, or if you want to do something else extra that's expensive, that's just going to push up the price tag of you being financially independent. But the starting point is knowing the cost of the life that you've got now, and what it's going to take to maintain that life going forward. And once you do that, and you get real, and you start being truthful with yourself about the cost of you and the way you live your life, then you can make choices knowing it's going to be good for your future. That's what we should be doing, all of us.
I think that is a brilliant place to wrap this up. That was fantastic. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Links to the book and everything. I mean, we are absolutely delighted to be able to bring free copies of your book to anybody that can download it. It's a PDF copy. It's available on our website. We have got hard copy books. If you prefer the touch, feel and smell of paper, we can send these books out to anybody. And again, part of our mission is to spread this word, because I know people have read this that have never made contact with us, that we've sent it to, or that our clients have distributed this on to their friends and family, and they will never make contact with us. And that's cool. But this book and the message in it has had such a big impact on how they're thinking about planning their life and their retirement. So look, thanks for joining us, and thank you so much for all the work you've done and you do for our profession.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
And that just leaves me to thank everybody for once again joining us on the Humans versus Retirement podcast. Until next time, take care. Thanks for tuning in to the Humans versus Retirement podcast. I hope this show will arm you with insights, strategies, and a newfound excitement for navigating life beyond the 9-to-5 grind. Remember, retirement isn't just an endpoint, it's a vibrant chapter brimming with opportunities for growth, adventure, and purpose. Keep exploring, stay curious, and embrace the next phase of your life with enthusiasm. Until next time, may your retirement dreams continue to flourish and inspire.